Thank you, Honorable Chair, for giving me the floor. Miracles, the one thing that suddenly increases our belief in religion by like multiplies it. Why is it so? Well, these are the most interesting stories or events that happens in religious contexts, right? Because miracles are things that you don't normally see. They are very extremely rare, but when they happen, it suddenly like invigorates your faith in God to a very high extent. What side proposition here is going to tell you today is that the emphasis given in to believe these miracles are something that's extremely detrimental to society. I will have three constructives, and I'm going to focus on how believing in miracles gives religion a very negative image, and how it's harmful. My second speaker is going to come to you and talk about how it harms the stakeholders specifically, and further on. So just to start with the premise, what is a miracle? I've already said that a miracle is one of those very rare events that happen, that we find in religious books such as Bible, Quran, etc., etc. And the believers of these religions are told to have complete faith in these miracles in order to in order to get into religion, right? So if I am a Muslim, I have to believe all the miracles that the Quran and the Hadith tells that happened before, right? So basically, our burden is not to show that miracles are false. As a result, we should not believe them, because we do not have the ability to prove exactly that these things did not happen. So rather, if we show you that believing in miracles ultimately harms people, I think the debate will easily go to us, right? So before I go to my constructive, is there any POIs?
Yeah. So how do you think a religion should be spread?
Okay, that's a good question. So religion has many ways of being spread, right? Think about normal preaching, right? When you want to preach, what do? You go to a public place and you start talking about God's teachings, right? That is one method of preaching. Another method of preaching is more widespread, like when you go to farther lands and then you start bring the message to those lands there in similar manners. That's another way of preaching. And the third way of preaching, you can say, is by writing books and literature. In these two ways, I think religion can be spread. Moving to my first constructive, miracles give religion an image of a fairy tale. Understand this: when you have examples of Muhammad splitting the moon, or how he went all the way to meet God, crossing the seven heavens before an aircraft was even built, right? So they tell you to believe these things, and just believing in it will be a criteria for you to enter this religion. Understand this: if people do believe these things without any conclusive proof or evidence, that ultimately is going to affect their ability to think objectively. Understand this: if you think these things are possible in that early of a time, understand that there's nothing that stops you from believing anything that anyone else say. So basically, if I come to you and tell you that this kind of miracle happened in this religion, you won't have an objective mentality to ultimately just disbelieve that straight on, because your objective thinking ability is already compromised, because you think that these are true. And this is one thing that terrorist organizations such as the extremist group, they can exploit very easily, right? Because once your mental ability is compromised, they can easily tell you something that, look, when the prophet went up to the moon, sorry, not the moon, when the prophet went up to heaven and saw everything, he saw that the jihadis got 72 virgins, right? So if you go and bomb this place and do this kind of act, you're gonna be one of them. If your objective mentality is compromised, you're much more susceptible to believe that. As a result, you are easily going to get influenced by them, and from there on, the terrorist activities that you can do is going to easily come to you, and you won't even think twice, because in your mind everything is possible, and like you want to be there, right? You want 72 virgins or whatever they promise you. So because your mentality is compromised, you are more susceptible to it, and we believe that's a very bad thing, right? As a result, we believe that reducing the emphasis of miracles in religion, in the spread of religion, can actually prevent that. Moving on to my second constructive, religion asks you to take a lot of leap of faith. So basically, when you hear stories such as how Jesus had cured Saint Paul's eyesight, basically your faith increases because you start believing that Jesus was a savior. What happens because of this? If you think Jesus is a savior to that much of an extent, then you start to think that I want that kind of favors from Jesus too. As a result, I'm not talking about blindness, but I'm including all other kind of mental disabilities that you may have. So instead of trying to actively get medical attention or facilities that you really need, you're going to sit at home and have faith, right? Because like you believe that if Jesus can do that, Jesus is going to listen to my prayers. Not taken. Jesus is going to listen to my prayers, and he's going to cure me just like he did to Saint Paul. And you can't say that this doesn't happen, because even in countries such as Bangladesh, you can see that the tradition of panipora, or even where imam or local mullah takes a glass of water, reads Surah Fatiha, blows into it, and tells you to drink it, and says that if you drink it, you're going to get cured, and whatever and what so forth. So basically, people actually buy into this. People actually take it, believing that this is going to be their ultimate cure. Not taken. As a result, we believe that because miracles are emphasized, you believe that anything can happen, anything is possible, and as a result, you believe that you opt into these more easily, right? And we believe that by reducing the emphasis of religion, we can prevent this to a great extent. Moving on to my third constructive. Now, this is a problem that's not local, but it's very widespread in the world. The problem of televangelists reaping the poor people of their money. Understand that televangelists use to miracles in such a selfish way, right? Because it's almost exploitation, right? Because when they talk about miracles, they show people all over the world, whoever's watching, that look, these things are real, right? These things happen. And you know what? If you believe in God and you believe in the message properly, and you pay $5 every week to me, I will make sure that you get whatever success that you need in life. I will make sure God listens to your prayers and whatnot and whatnot. So basically, it's what they use, and basically most of their audience are poor, are underprivileged, right? So their audience goes listens to that, and they're like, yes, I want that. Look, medicine costs $50. I just have to give him $5 per week. I think in a month it's just gonna cost $20. I think it's a worthy trade-off, and they're going to keep on doing that. But obviously we know that that's not the cure, right? As a result, we believe that through
Your
these
time's over now.
last second, with these constructives, I believe that that emphasis on miracles on spring should be stopped. Thank you. 8 minutes 48.
I think আমি এখন finally add chair হয়ে যাব আমার কাছে chair না হয়েছিল this position by Sajid. All right, I thank the government first speaker for their speech, and
I missed half the speech.
ভালো হয়েছে তুমি কি hello
Yeah, I'm at the yellow.
কি ওয়ারিশ আচ্ছা
Yeah.
এই না ইয়ার মিউট কর তোমার
এক সেকেন্ড
incoming video call এটা মানে why is it saying incoming video call? I am in the video call. How is it incoming? But I didn't mute myself because I don't know. I'm not ashamed of myself. Never. Everyone did this. আসলে কেউ দেখছে না 3A তে সবাই আছে 3 জন আছে oh my god কাজী আছে সবাই দেখছে
4 viewers
কি
চারটা
আমাদের
viewer
না?
আছে হ্যাঁ
hello people you four
হ্যাঁ,
viewers and আচ্ছা ওয়ারিশ
Right, আমরা ইলেকট্রিসিটি আবার চলে গেছে।
oh god
Lord.
এর জন্য people like you who have some electricity they should go first PM by law so yeah Sriyaner জন্যই first যায় for example
Yeah.
আচ্ছা whatever তুমি এখন আসো Warish.
Can I start?
Please.
yeah
Yeah.
Three, two, one. There's two sorts of golf cases that I expected today. One was a wrong case, and the second, the one we saw today, was an irrelevant case. Sadly, it was the latter. Why was their case completely irrelevant to today's motion? Because understand, they gave you a general critique of religion itself without tying specifically to how the emphasis on miracles is something specifically to be regretted. When they talk to you about how it harms people's rationality, that's a critique of religion itself, not specifically something that's exclusive to miracles. You are able to, for the thing that they say of faith healing, hospitals, and so on, all of these are not exclusive to the point where there's a exclusive benefit of this to religion's miracles. What do we mean by this? This means that you can easily achieve these same things through an appeal to heaven, through an appeal of going to heaven, and you can make people do certain things. These aren't specific to religion in this case. Second, they miss the more important context of the debate. Understand that in modern society, miracles are extremely rare. Where have we seen miracles the most? We have seen them in the past. We have seen them in the historical context, and that is the context of the debate that they miss. The real debate today occurs in analyzing in a retrospective manner whether or not the spread of religion that occurred in the past, whether it was better off when it was spread emphasizing miracles, or it was better off in the alternative being through violence and force. They failed to set up the clear debate. That's why we have to do it for them today. First point of rebuttal, where they tell us that televangelists rip off the poor. First of all, not specific to religion, not religion's miracles in itself. And second, this isn't ripping off to the extent that this is an exchange of money for a unique and meaningful spiritual experience. And it's utter paternalism to make the decision for that person, telling their decision is illegitimate. We feel it's perfectly legitimate for these people to spend their money however they wish. We give to you two things. From our side, we'll show you first how miracles are a unique way of convincing people through a subjective experience that is perfectly legitimate to do so. Second, I'll show you how this emphasis has historically reduced fundamentalism and increased tolerance. Before that, a POI.
go ahead
Okay, no POI. So, first constructive will show you how miracles are a unique way of convincing people. First of all, understand the miracle as an extraordinary tale that defies your rational, everyday thought. What does this unique effect that this has? The unique effect is that moment of collective awe, that moment of wonder, that belief that you had, there is no other way to bring it back in adult life. Because the only time you see it is when you're a child, and everything in life astounds you and amazes you. That's a very unique and meaningful experience that cannot be undermined. And this meaningful experience can only be done so through the miracles which bring back that childlike awe, that bring back that unique sense of feeling amazement and wonder at the world around you. So that is valuable in and of itself, and is far better than the alternative, which is violence and force through spreading your religion. Second, it shows you a positive community building experience through storytelling. How have we seen these miracles be spread? Bunch of people gather around a campfire and they exchange these stories. They talk to each other. They tell these stories around the campfire and discuss it among themselves. It passed on from father to son to grandson. Through this, we see a positive community building through a shared experience of that moment of awe. It creates these tightly knit communities that you can't have in any other way. That in other way, the only binding experience of these communities would be through other means, through exploitation, through violence, which we do not support. Miracles, and specifically the emphasis on miracles, has historically created these positive communities and these positive bonds that we firmly stand for on the opposition side. Finally, what does these miracles do uniquely? These set a moral lesson to go by. For example, when Jesus heals the blind and the mute and the poor, and he helps them, it sets a standard for charitable act in the future. It sets a standard to emulate, a standard that you keep on achieving, because you can't literally go and cure people on the spot.
Here.
Therefore, you're set to properly go through and do the best of your capacity to emulate Jesus in healing the blind to the best of your capacity. This is unique to miracles, because only through these miracles can you give people that sort of standard that makes them continue for their entire lives, that makes them devote their resources, and make sure through this hero culture, through this worship of these people, make you do these good things. Also, for example, the sacrifice of Ibrahim's son, when he went to sacrifice it to God, it shows you this dedication. So these things we show you, have shown in first constructive, it matters because these miracles are perfectly legitimate, and they're the best alternative to spreading this religion, because it sets up this case where it doesn't have any violent or alternative harms because of these things. It doesn't harm a single person. Second, constructive will show you how this emphasis has historically reduced fundamentalism in the world. Because understand, in the historical context where this debate occurs, the religion is either spread through miracles and storytelling, or it is spread through violence. There is no middle ground to begin with, because you can't go and logically convince people to follow your religion. Because one, religion itself is a suspension of logic and an exercise of faith, where it takes you to a leap of faith and makes it a personal, subjective choice. And second, these new religions lack the traction to get that movement going in the first place. Therefore, what do we compare, and what's the clear comparative? The comparative is how Islam spread in South Asia versus how Islam spread in the Middle East. What do we mean by this? Look to South Asia and the history of South Asia. It spread through the Sufi saints, people who went into these societies and used miracles, used stories, and preached these amazing religious stories that bound and captivated the people on the ground, that made them rethink how they saw life as a whole. And these people voluntarily decided to join the religion because of the immense appeal that was only possible through these heart-wrenching stories and these miracles. We see this only possible, not taken, this is only possible in the South Asian case. Therefore, we see that in this case, what's the comparative? It will show you how the Ottoman Empire used conquest and force and violence to spread the religion of Islam in the Middle East, to Afghanistan and Iraq. And the comparative is very clear. Structurally, when you use the emphasis of miracles, you make sure that the religion you spread isn't necessarily a political identity, but it's more of a cultural, it's more of a spiritual aspect. Because it's no longer tied to who you are as a person, but it's tied to not how you live in your society, but it's more about your individualistic connection with God himself. It's more to do with your individual spirituality. That only happens that when you put that emphasis on religion. What's the modern context in which we see the effect? We see in South Asia far less fundamentalism and more tolerance as a whole, and more tolerance of other sects, such as Sufis and Shias and Sunnis, for example, in Indonesia and so on. Compared with Afghanistan, compared with Iraq, we see far more violence, we see far more intolerance, because in those cases, that religion was spread. It was spread through fundamentalism and through violence and conquest. There's a far worse way to spread that religion compared to our alternative, which is through how it is spread through miracles and the emphasis on miracles and through storytelling. We see that in this case, it's far better. They need to prove to us from their side, in order to win this debate, not why religion is bad, that it's not the burden from the debate. They don't need to prove how these things are tricking people. Rather, their alternative is to show you how, historically, they would rather have ensured religion be spread, and what is the alternative that they show from their world. We show you from our world a peaceful way of slowly ensuring that you reach out to people on a gradual basis, you convince them over time, you give them heart-wrenching stories that mean something to them, that make their life more interesting and less bland, that you teach them a moral lesson, and you pass down these positive communities. These are what we show from our side, and from their side, if they don't show an alternative, we win this debate by default. We are very proud to oppose. Thank you. 826.
Here.
Here. All right. I thank Vash for his speech, calling the Deputy Prime Minister to further the case from the government side. Who is it going to be?
10
Abra?
seconds. I'm TPM.
Achha. Gave you a minute. So,
Cool. Zaid, can someone time?
Acha.
Am I to time
Yeah,
with the problem?
I'm keeping the time.
Okay, like, would you be giving banks or what? Boba,
Yeah,
1 minute,
clap,
alright?
Sarah Kumbhar.
Acha, cool. Fair enough.
Okay.
Acha.
Minute comes on now what? Okay, just 178. Okay. 178. Alright, calling Saqib for the government side's case. Here.
As from team government, we do not believe that miracles in themselves are bad. We do not believe that miracles are not true, or that religion in itself should not should part its ways from miracles, right? But however, what we believe is that when your faith is only contingent on miracles, and the only way the majority of your faith is concentrated towards that miracle in making you believe in that religion, that is where the problem lies, right? We do not have a problem with storytelling or stuff like that, right? What you need to understand is that religion is more than miracles. Religion is about not telling lies, and why that is a good thing to do. It's about being good to strangers and being human, like being humble, right? It's about being nice to even the worst of your enemies. And these are practices that religion teaches us, right? These are exclusive things that only religion can give us, and these are the way of lives that religion portrays, right? But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, when we actually base our entire faith on a particular religion, based on that particular miracle, right, or based on a false idea that, you see, if I uptake that religion, this will happen to me, a divine revelation will occur, or my life will have a dramatic turnaround, right? That is the point in time where we have a problem with miracles. Varish very conveniently tells you that this debate occurs in retrospect, right? We beg to differ. What you need to understand is that, you see, at this point in time, we concede to the fact that religions needed this sort of critical mass in the past, right? However, ladies and gentlemen, the problem here, as Nair had clearly identified, is in the present, where religion does not need that sort of traction anymore, right? Where people now are more aware, right? At this point in time, there is no point of manipulating people using these sorts of stories, or using these sorts of miracles, which actually lead to people's lead to people's consent being overlooked, lead to people's rationality being overlooked, right? Moreover, ladies and gentlemen, what you need to understand is, when you actually choose to opt into a particular religion based on miracle in itself, and no valid reasoning or no logical judgment, right, or no other reasoning at all, right, what happens here is that your perception of religion or your interaction about those religions are based only on what fiction is, right, on what is something very godly, and not something that occurs in your day-to-day life, right? What this leads to is different discourses taking the wrong way. What this leads to is people having religious traction, people having social friction between different religions, where people believe in different forms of the same miracle, right, which leads to people having different people having fights within themselves, right, with religious communities being against each other, which leads to a lot of problems. Varish tells you that, you see, South Asia
POS,
is
sir.
comparatively later, Varish tells you that, you see, South Asia is comparatively peaceful because of the peaceful way in which religion was spread, right? We beg to differ. Why? Because what you need to understand is, you see, in these scenarios where religion was where the spread of religion was contingent on, you see, these sorts of magical revolutions and whatnot, right? All these sorts of miracles. That is where people's understanding of religion was very flawed to a very big extent. We'll be elaborating on that in our constructive. But what that led to is different sort of rivalries between different religions, right? This lack of tolerance for other religions, right? It was that blind faith that binded them into a particular religion. It was that blind faith in those miracles that made them intolerant and less likely to understand each other, and which led to the continuous wars between, see, India and Pakistan, and we can put thousands of wars like that. You see, between Jews and Muslims, right? So all these things, right? Because of this blind faith and because of this lack of questioning, these are repercussions that occur, and these are only existent when, you see, miracles are the only basis of your faith in a particular religion, right? Before moving on to the constructive, yes, why?
Are you okay with people, imams or any other person telling you that you will be given Jannat or any other kind of heaven if you follow this religion? And are you okay with this sort of propagation?
What you need to understand here is that is that the false of a reward is something that people can choose to objectively understand, right? What you need to like, but the difference that that are that promising a reward, difference between promising a reward and saying that you see these things have occurred in the past and these are established truths that you cannot deny, right? Is the fact that this creates a feeling of absolutism within the minds of people, right? This makes people unable to question their faith, unable to question concepts not existent or rationality not existent, where people operate religion only on the basis of miracles. Because of this, that their faith is based on miracles. Miracles are so fantastic,
Yo, sir.
which appeal to, which do not appeal to certain logical sense, or like, logical sense, but to the fictional sense, right?
Akib, could you just speak louder?
And at this point in time, what happens here is that you see people forget logic. They do not question their religion. What you need to understand is that there are certain practices. For example, when Islam tells you that you see you should not actually oppress women, or you should be very humble, and you should be nice to people, right? Or even if there are bad practices, saying that you see women should be limited in particular aspects of society, right? Then you question this religion. Then you question that faith. That you see why is this so? Or why did our prophet actually face these things? And that is when certain and religious pastors came in, where people had a discourse and people tried to understand the religion to a further extent, but they actually base their faith on what value it adds to the life, right? How it makes them feel because of this.
Could you please speak a bit louder?
How it makes them feel because of the certain practices that this religion incorporates within themselves, right? At this point, that is where we believe that logically people accept religion in a very rational manner and they question it. In reality, however, because people have a very blind faith about religion, right? Then this leads to institutions like ISIS or religious pastors actually tapping into this blind faith and making people do heinous crimes, right? Based on their weakened understanding of religion, right? That is the harm that we try to communicate to you today, right? That it is very vulnerable when your only perception or when your only objective of following religion is a miracle that nothing happens, right? And the false optimism that religion gives me. It's not one that just happens to believe in something that happens to not happening. Religion objective
Not audible.
religion's objective at this point in time is to maximize followers, right? So pastors go to heinous extents where it leads to the exaggeration of miracles, where it leads to giving false hope and false ideas and false viewpoints, right? This leads to betraying that vulnerable group being that person who is taking faith to that particular pastor from that particular pastor, right? This is particularly a problem on the very first principle, that person is being betrayed, right? That is morally wrong. But secondly, ladies and gentlemen, his interactions with society are also being affected, right? The way he treats minorities, the way he looks at others, right? The way he actually, the way he has public discourses or influence other people also affected by that particular view of religion, which is tilted towards miracles, false hope, and whatnot, right? At this point in time, we believe this brings a multitude of economics, right? Which actually harms not only that person, but also others who are
Akib,
associated
could you
with
speak into the microphone, like more close?
also others who are like associated with him, and at the end of the day, this leads to a lot of harm to all these other people who are blindly following this, right? But thirdly, ladies and gentlemen, we move on. Why the purpose of religion is brought to us, right? The purpose of religion is to try to instill resilience, right? Seeing a way of life that is good, right? Seeing a way of peaceful life that is conscious for us. It's not perceive or protect instead of waiting for miracles to happen, right? It's not to take action and be perceived like it instead of waiting for God to actually come about and help you, right? At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, what is happening here is that people extremely
এক সেকেন্ড থামো তো, লাইক আর আসলে শোনা যায় না, সো লাইক
একদম না
ইয়া লাইক না, একটু শোনা যাচ্ছে কিন্তু ইটস লাইক ভেরি হোয়াট ডু ইউ কল ইট, বব বব।
I think I should given like 3 minutes time. Next speaker, মাইকে ঠিক করে 3 minutes time দাও।
Sakib, I couldn't hear full 2 minutes of your speech. So, ওই 2টা মিনিট কিন্তু অনেক ইম্পর্টেন্ট হতে পারে, ঠিক আছে?
Exactly. So I think it's just fair যে সাকিব মাইকে ঠিক করে 2-3 মিনিট নিক কারোর স্পিচের সমস্যা নেই। We also need to have clarity about that. না
অনেক
মাইক
ডিস্টর্শন আসছে সাকিব, অনেক বেশি ডিস্টর্টেড।
সাকিব তোর স্পিচের হাফ দ্য থিংস কিছু শোনা যায় নাই।
Can you turn your microphones off?
তোমার মাইক্রোফোন খুব ডিস্টর্টেড আসছে, মনে হচ্ছে you're underwater.
Hello?
Yeah, just go to describe what.
Alright, he's drowning in our
Am I
constructives.
audible?
Can't blame him.
Sadhu, you are audible.
Guys,
Okay, speak for a few seconds. Like talk.
right?
এখন শোনা যাচ্ছে।
তাহলে আমি বললাম ঠিক আছে
তুমি কোন মিনিট থেকে শুরু করবা? তোমার লাস্টে at least 3 মিনিট অথবা 2 মিনিট তো শুনতেই পারি।
আচ্ছা, like what was the last thing that the H noted from my speech?
I noted the last thing that I wrote down was miracles create a lot of social friction because many religions claim that the things come from the same miracles and that creates problems.
Acha.
Yeah, those will be back.
So moving on, right? Understand this. How does religion spread? It spreads through pastors, right? And the objective of these pastors is to maximize followers because that is how that is how it leads to religion widening and reaching greater aspects, right? So what you need to understand is the psyche of these pastors. These pastors go to heinous extents to actually preach religion. That incorporates exaggerating what the actual miracle is, that incorporates giving people false hope, and that incorporates making people believe in a very tilted version of religion where everything will occur in miracles, where like God is there to protect you and you do not need to do stuff, right? That leads to a very big betrayal of trust of that person,
POI,
right?
sir.
Later. That leads to a very big betrayal of trust of that person. Why so? Because at the end of the day, his perception of that religion is entirely based upon that false premise that that pastor sets up for him, right? Instead of those social interactions that religion would have given him, or instead of those social interactions that religion was intrinsic to religion, right? He believes in what the pastor tells him, or he believes in these miracles, which is very counterproductive and problematic. It is more counterproductive because of the fact this person also goes on to preach religion, also goes on to
A bit clear.
religion, right? So, শুনতে পারো?
Like একটু clear please. Like অনেক hazy আসতেছে।
So this is further problematic because this person also goes about to goes on to have social discourse on religion, right? This person also preaches religion to some extent to the people around him. Leads with a very bad idea of religion to other people around him. So his social interactions being based on this tilted perception of religion leads to others having these tilted perceptions of religion, and hence we net harm in society where people do not understand the core principles of religion and are very contradicted about what religion wants them to do, right? It leads to religious tension between individual groups, but this also leads to religious tensions between one religious group and the other. For example, in South Asia, right, you see Muslims and Hindus constantly fighting. You see Christians and Muslims having constant fight over
POI, sir.
religious hadiths and what is true, right? At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, we do not want these sorts of perceptions to be tilted or to be manipulated, and hence we believe that people should not consider these things while taking up religion. But thirdly, ladies and gentlemen, we move on to the purpose of religion, which is not being
What just happened?
Okay.
His microphone just got cut off.
Yeah.
Hello?
Is his speech done?
This is the definition of a mic drop.
some
Like I literally can't hear half his speech.
even after that, right? But you need to understand.
Acha,
It's really inconvenient, okay?
Sakib, can you summarize the core tenets of your argument? Because অনেক সময় হয়েছে যে ভালো পয়েন্ট বলার পরেও ওটা শোনা যাচ্ছিল না। তো can you tell us the most important parts of your speech? At least তাহলে Edge জানবে।
So, first is purpose of religion is to give you a way of life. It's about purpose of religion is to give you a way of life. It's about not telling lies, being good, being humble, all these things, right? When miracles are prioritized or glorified, what happens is these are things that are not that people ignore. Hence, what happens is that they do not perceive it together. They expect things to happen to them. What this leads to is that after you have been a God-fearing Muslim, you have prayed for 5 times a day, you've fasted for 30 days in Ramadan. Even after that, when things do not happen to you or go as per your wish, right, you feel extremely left out, you suffer from depression, and your expectations are completely dashed. What this leads to is people being left out of religion and like being completely losing faith in life and left out, right? Because this religion was giving meaning to their life, and this religion did not betray them. That is where the person who is seeking faith is very vulnerable to manipulation, is very vulnerable to even committing suicide, is very vulnerable to having a very unmeaningful life, right? That is the reason why we believe that these sorts of perceptions about religion should not. Because if you are taking up religion, you should take it the hard way, right? You should believe that you have to persevere day in and day out. Results might or might not come, right? But that is the point of religion. You have to be good regardless, right? People might be bad to you. You still have to be good to them. That is what religion preaches to you. Instead of having miracles, where you see at the end of the day you can be a lazy ass for all your life, and then one miracle will occur and you will be a prophet, right? So it's a thing we do not want to preach. We want people to have realistic expectations about life. We want people to enjoy religion to the point where it does not make them depressed or where it does not make them feel left out, right? And we want people to understand religion and to preach it and to have proper discourse about it instead of having a tinted perception about it. Which is why we're very proud to propose. Which is why religion, like miracles, emphasis on miracles is very counterproductive to the spirit of religion. Very proud to propose.
Okay, I got the main thing. So
Here. If only we could hear here.
I heard it. That's
Zayed gets it.
Nah, yeah, I got it. The main things were that
Like Zayed, like after his last speech, like I like really got like a bit confused. Like
main thing
Can I
was it creates social friction because miracles are very divisive because they they have a huge part in shaping how a religion looks like, which creates more divides. Second was pastors exaggerate religion's miracles and they start crowding out the good things that good practices that religion teaches. And finally, miracles create very large expectations of people, and to a religious person for whom religion means a lot of things, when he suddenly sees that his miracle no longer happens, he's very disappointed and he becomes like depressed and stuff and subject to a lot of exploitation.
Zayed, can you give Sadid 1 minute? Because এই পয়েন্টগুলো এখন নোট করলো।
Zayed, like in the speed you told, like I mean, first দুইটা শুনতে পারছি, but last তিনটা could you repeat? Because
last তিনটা ছিল না, first দুইটা, last was miracles create very large expectations.
আচ্ছা Zayed, just one request, একটু একবার আস্তে করে like ও কি বলছে, like talk about.
Number one, miracles define how religion is and are very divisive because they create a lot of differences and cause a lot of social friction.
Okay.
Secondly, pastors exaggerate religion's miracles, and as a result, they sometimes drown out the good practices that religion does promote. And finally, miracles create very large expectations on people. So when to a religious person, পাঁচ ওয়াক্ত নামাজ পড়ে, when he sees that his life is not going the way he wants it, he becomes super depressed because he had that faith in miracles that religion gives.
আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে, I didn't note it down. I'd like a minute like to like actually get it because like এগুলো কিছু wasn't clear.
That's
So yeah, meanwhile we should provide our viewers with some sort of entertainment.
Will I show them my face?
Yeah.
entertainment, Navid. Entertainment. That is not entertainment.
That's comedy.
Zogbala somebody.
Alright, I'll sing. Alright.
প্লিজ না মিউট কর আরে ওরে মিউট
Hey,
কর
what is Facebook chat back? Facebook chat back.
what was gonna say but yeah
Hey man, can you like not mute me? That's rude.
yeah but you were nah Divesh nah Sadid once a minute
I wasn't going to sing,
Hey.
but like after that bout of rudeness, it seems necessary.
শুরু করলে কিন্তু বন্ধ হয়ে যাবে very quickly
আচ্ছা একটা জিনিস সাকিব, do you have a laptop with a webcam? Sakib, you there?
in this moment let us hear what's going on in PA.
If I could save time in a bottle.
Sajid, if you're listening this, Facebook fit the check for.
This is important because God says
Srijan is
that
talking, please. Everyone have some respect.
my representative is happiness. You cannot understand
The first thing.
You cannot understand why they're miraculous. I have less. So when a person claims that he's a representative of God, it's because
Oh wait a second, they're gonna help you.
The first thing that I'd like to do
is to save every video.
every day till eternity passes away.
I'll spend them with you. And it never seems
to be enough time to do the things you wanna do.
I looked around the
Enough to know
globe.
you're the one I wanna go through time with.
Tan 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 tan.
Yes, Sadid.
Oh, shabash, shabash.
Yeah.
All right, Sadid. I don't want another round of that.
99 bottles of beer on the wall, 99 bottles of beer.
My
Take
gosh.
one around, pass one around.
আচ্ছা গাইস, have you ever been taught this একটা ideal script কেমন লিখতে হয়? আমার স্ক্রিপ্ট লিখে কোনো ধারণা, or is it like to an extent subjective?
না, তোমার পার্সোনাল একটা স্টাইল ডেভেলপ করা দরকার, লাইক দেয়ার ইজ নো এন্ড অল ওয়ে।
হ্যাঁ, but you still need some directions. আমার স্ক্রিপ্ট
আচ্ছা ধরো একটা তুমি কি অ্যাকাউন্ট করছো, আর ইউ সায়েন্স স্টুডেন্ট অর কমার্স?
I'm science.
আচ্ছা সায়েন্স হলো বাদ দাও, জাস্ট পেজের মাঝখানে একটা টান মারবা, তারপর ওদের আর্গুমেন্টস গুলো।
হ্যাঁ, I do that, but ব্যাপারটা হচ্ছে আচ্ছা পরে বলবো, জিনিসটা বলবো।
আচ্ছা
Whipping.
Yeah.
Whipping acha whatever. Later.
Later.
Sadid. You ready? আমাদের মান সম্মান ডুবাচ্ছ তুমি।
Hello. Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
আচ্ছা সাকিব কি এখানে আছে? কেউ চলে গেছে? না ওয়েট, ও না থাকলে আমার আচ্ছা সাকিব, তুমি কি পিসি ইউজ করতেছো নাকি ল্যাপটপ ইউজ করতেছো?
I'm on my phone, why?
মোবাইল, আচ্ছা দ্যাট এক্সপ্লেইনস মানে ওয়াই সাউন্ডের অবস্থা। তোমার কি বাই চান্স হেডফোন মাইক সহ আছে? ওইটা হেডফোন অথবা ইয়ারফোন আর মাইক আছে, ট্রাই টু গেট দোজ, পরবর্তীতে কাজে লাগবে।
আমার হেডফোনে মাইক আছে।
Alright, so 1, bring the mic closer to your mouth when you're talking. 2, adjust the socket, adjust the plug-in to your phone, like rotate it around until you can hear yourself clearly.
Can you guys hear me now?
Very low volume and very distorted.
আচ্ছা doesn't matter.
Rotate the audio port.
আবার কি জিজ্ঞেস করতে চাইলে তুমি জিজ্ঞেস করো।
I used the same thing কালকে ডিবেটে, it worked, ঠিক আছে? So I don't know what's wrong.
Yeah, well, he was very
Kufa. You insulted religion, that's why.
Okay, Sadid, শুরু করে ফেল।
আমি
Starting in 3, 2, the point in time, sorry, government comes up to you and tells you that this debate is about this debate was centrally about miracles, taking away the main basis of religion. We oppose to that principally because this debate was never about which sector was the only way of promotion of religion and how it should be spread. But this debate was about whether the emphasis of a certain spectrum would be better for certain individuals to begin with. So the primary burden that we had was to show to you how, under our context, as Waris explained, the way was better because it created a scenario where people, throughout storytelling, could ensure that they had a moderate to a better understanding and a subjective feeling of religion to begin with. Now, before moving on to my constructives, a few basic rebuttals. The very first idea he talks about. The first idea from there's a house is about the discourse causing lots of problems, within those communities causing a lot of problems together. They should understand the comparative in such a in such a scenario.
Oh God.
What just happened right now? Can you hear Sajid? I can't hear Sajid.
No one can hear Sajid.
I had a POI ready for you.
What?
Navid will answer your POI, don't worry.
POI, hey, abro POI jiga Navid uttor de.
I'm okay. Bol. Abra POI.
So, look, Waris said that religions brought people together because of common shared experiences, right? But let's look at the case of Japan, where Shintoism existed, or let's look at Hindus. They have a pantheon of gods, millions of them, and this caused more friction than actual.
Hello.
Exactly. So what you're basically saying is that.
Hello.
Sadid, Bol.
Yeah, Shadid, continue your speech.
Like, can I start again? Like,
Yeah, sure, start again.
like, I'm extremely sorry for my technical difficulty.
That's when look. Okay. Navid, answer Abro's POI.
I'm the answer to Abra's POI.
Just ball this here.
Okay. Okay. So what you're assuming? So the very nature of these fundamental clashes, to an extent, do not depend on miracles or the propagation of miracles to begin with. We tell you, even in the example of different kind of Shia Sunni conflicts or different kind of conflicts inside religion, it depends on other things like historical context, other views, other interpretation of different kind of views. If you're solely trying to tell me that ganjams are created in religion just because of the way different kind of miracles are propagated, I cannot buy that. Because miracles itself is a very, very small part of religion to begin with. It is merely a tool of indoctrination, but not the whole point of religion for itself, right? That's your burden to prove to us why the Shia Sunni conflict just dependent on like misinterpretation of miracles to begin with, right? That's your burden. That's us.
Yeah, bro, that's your burden. Acha, Syed, are you ready?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. About Acha, should I give a speech currently?
Khub tatari, as quickly as you can before you're up again.
Acha. Start. 3, 2, 1. The reason why we believe that that side government never has an opportunity to take this debate away is that because of principally they believe that the only reason that the only way of propagation of religion is through emphasis in miracles to begin. This debate was never centrally around that. But the greater burden of our side of the house is whether, as a mode of promotion of religion, whether miracles served a better purpose in giving people that irrational understanding of having a better way and a moderate way to have a subjective understanding that they believe they tend to believe in, and which is beneficiary from for them at the end.
Okay.
Why?
Karna gele.
I think Sheikh Hasina is to blame for this.
পুরা এটা পুরো সিস্টেমটা
Bro, এটা মানুষ শুনতেছে।
পুরো এনেছে
আজকে ঘুম হয়ে যেত সাকিব।
আচ্ছা গাইস ওকে যে আমি ও টু স্পিচ দি
নাভি তোর স্পিচটা দিয়ে দাও
দে দে Navid. Sajid, you're up.
বলছে পারবো
তাহলে give me 30 seconds না অথবা 1 minute.
হ্যাঁ টাইম না নষ্ট জাস্ট দিয়ে দাও
Good? Okay.
So how about we have a debate without second speakers? Is that fair?
তাহলে গ্যারান্টিড হারবো
Wow, like discarding your damn.
Damn.
Your first speaker এমন বাস দিলা।
না তুমি যেভাবে রিফিট করছো তখন যদি না সেকেন্ড স্পিকার রিস্টার্ট করতে পারো তখন গ্যারান্টিড তো মানে এটা
Oh, hey, guys, yes, Sabit call me. হ্যাঁ সাবিত বল। হ্যাঁ বল।
Can you speak?
Hey, Navid, Sajid call though and hold your phone to your microphone.
Just চিন্তা করিস না তুই just শুনতে থাক আমি I get you সমস্যা নেই ছেড়ে আলোচনা ওকে
Navid J Lomba, oh my god.
বল
Longest debate of my life.
reply নাই don't be hitting. Acha, bet out of like how much would you bet that Rafi has stopped watching this video? How likely is it?
এক মিনিট দাঁড়াও বল স্যার বল
Okay, guys, speak. Like, case speech দিবে.
I get you. Chill. I'm সমস্যা চিল ওকে সমস্যা নেই বাই সমস্যা নাই চিল I get you ছেড়ে দাও সমস্যা আমি this is not the time to answer this sorry আমি পরে করব ওকে ব্রো কালকে ভিডিওতে কখন যাব এটা লাইক একটু পরে বলি
Oh, I love this.
I just couldn't get any more. Like,
Hey, my WSJC experience counselor.
oh yeah, it was like pretty nice, I guess. Like I went to a country, did some debating, and came back.
এই কেসটা বলবো না কেসটা বলার পর বলে যে
Arey Zayed, bro. Did you ever get to chill with Hemant?
Yeah, আমি বলছি হ্যাঁ টিম ইন্ডিয়া খুব জোস
Team India অনেক জোস।
আমারও
They're legit bros, man. They're bros.
চট্টগ্রামে কেন সুইজারল্যান্ড থেকে লিপ বামস
Ansi, you didn't like. If you want chocolates, just come over. I'm giving incentives every time you come over. I'll give you a chocolate.
Wow.
Eventually, I'll incite a Pavlovian response where the minute you even think about Warish, you'll salivate at the conditioned experience of those chocolates.
Okay, then this discussion went somewhere I had no idea was gonna go.
What? You don't know developmental psychology and behavioralism?
So it's good. Good, alright.
It's nothing weird.
Yeah, you're not fun. Abra, how's English literature going?
It's going good. Like I was planning on studying it after this, but mone hoy ajke hobe. Like I prefer to study at night.
Yeah, I wanted to work on my college application essay, but this,
Common app e diccho naki alada?
yeah, common app.
I guess you're gonna focus on debate at ECA, like public speaking.
Yeah.
Waresh, where are you applying to?
Rai pipe I khai.
heart has
Are you gonna apply to any particular country? Like, you can tell us that much at least.
Well, obviously, I applied to like at least 15 universities in US. Wayne University, Washington State.
Oh, acha, so you are following the thread, ঠিক আছে।
I know what your point was when you raised that, so I can understand non-verbal communication. Chill.
Okay.
তারপর তো ট্যাগ করছিল তো it wasn't really subtle.
No, and there was a thing. Let's see. Oh, there's this university called Drake, which like so awesome. Like, damn, the university is called Drake. Like, whoa.
Drake and Josh.
Ew, man.
Drake শুনলে কি মনে হয়?
Drake, man, Drake. Drake is
What's the first thing that
sixth
comes to
god.
your mind when you hear Drake? It should not be Drake and Josh.
Thank you, Zed, for like supporting me once in your life.
Nah, I don't like Drake, but wow. Modern music.
Actually, like
You're
Drake.
missing out. You're not listening.
Right, Drake is
I don't
the
Drake,
best. Drake is life.
Yes, Warish, thank you.
Past থেকে Khaled আমার
Hey,
agree
is that
করতেছে,
Khaled?
full heart.
Wait, he
Yes.
likes Drake.
Yeah, নষ্ট হয়ে গেছে।
Ore,
Hey,
Khaled,
Khaled,
bhai.
you feel like talking আজকে? তুমি কি
তো
আসছো?
দুজন কানাডায়
Oh,
Okay.
Sajid's back.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
কে নাভিদ না সাজিদ?
হ্যাঁ,
হ্যালো
আমি প্রিটি শিওর এখন যে শুভ ভাইরে পুরা মানে কেস
Sadi
বুঝে
beep
আসছে
kor.
কারণ স্পিচে
হ্যালো আই এম
Sadi
ব্যাক
beep kor. Beep kor.
লাইক আমি আবার কেটে যাবে সো লাইক আই এম নট টেকিং দ্য রিস্ক
ও
প্রবলি
আয়ের কি খবর?
আচ্ছা, exactly beep kor. সমস্যা নেই।
আয়ের
না 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 লাইক লাইক আমার লাইক কানেকশন কেটে যাবে দ্যাটস ফর শিওর কারণ লাইক তাহলে আমি রিস্ক নিচ্ছি না প্রবলি হায়দার বা ওয়ারিশ যদি আয়রন ম্যান করে কেউ একজন তো দ্যাট উড বি আ বেটার অপশন আর কি
আচ্ছা একটা কাজ করো, তোমার ফোনটা নিয়ে লাউড স্পিকারে দাও, নাবিদকে কল দাও টিএনটি মাধ্যমে, তাহলে টাকা খরচ
Okay,
কম
call
হবে।
this. সমস্যা নেই। ও আচ্ছা। And
দাও,
then
টাকা অনেক কম পড়বে।
নট দ্যাট আর কি like,
লাউড
আরে
স্পিকার
নাভিদ আয়রন ম্যান কর, আয়রন ম্যান কর, নাভিদ আয়রন ম্যান কর।
আচ্ছা জায়েদ জায়েদ লাইক কুড আই ডু দিস যে সাকিব লাস্টে যেভাবে লাইক শর্টে বলে দিছে
হ্যাঁ,
like,
sure, sure, বল বল।
আচ্ছা তো লাইক উইদিন আ মিনিট যেটা বলছি আমার আইডিয়া ওয়াজ
আচ্ছা,
প্রবলি
bro, আমি তো একটু রেডি।
লাইক আমি আমি বলে দিই নাকি লাইক
না না ব্রো, দরকার নাই তো। দরকার আছে তো,
You
because
wanna
আমি
say to Navid?
জায়েদ কি করবো
It's easier if you just say তুমি কি বলবো? Navid can build on that anyway in third.
আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে
আচ্ছা,
ঠিক আছে তাহলে
I've
বলে
heard
দিই
it.
বলো।
আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে তো ফার্স্টলি হ্যাঁ তো ফার্স্টলি দ্য আইডিয়া ইজ দিস যে ফার্স্ট পার্ট হচ্ছে যে এটা ওনলি ওয়ে না এবং আমাদের বার্ডেনও না এটা ক্রিয়েট করা আমাদের বার্ডেন হচ্ছে এটা যে লাইক কোনটা একটা বেটার ওয়ে এবং কোনটা একটা মানে which one creates a better perception creates an opportunity for better perception of these individuals and if it and it's absolutely okay for every individual to actually perceive religion the way that they want to secondly the discourse point was like this the discourse point is worsen off under their situation where force is the only metric of judgment of how a religion
আমার স্পেশালিতে কোনো ই নাই লাইক, because everyone knows what is the specific things, right? I don't think ওর বলা দরকার। I think
আচ্ছা like
Team
but
discussion.
if you're telling this, আমার স্পেশালিতে থাকবে নাকি?
হ্যাঁ
হ্যাঁ,
like
সমস্যা নাই,
মানে
সমস্যা নাই।
হ্যাঁ I get it like that's the thing like I
Like yeah, it's
আচ্ছা
unfair to me as well. সমস্যা নাই, আমি
আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে ঠিক আছে ঠিক আছে like my speech would have been that তো like
হ্যাঁ,
আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে
you just say.
Alright then. বুঝছি। Okay. Alright, carry on going live. Do not have fear. Alright. আচ্ছা,
Okay,
moving on
cool.
to upper speech. Our point হচ্ছে their burden was to what?
Right, আমি শুরু করি।
এখন কোন স্পিচ?
আল্লাহ জানে, really?
O2, it's O2.
অপ2 ছিল অপ2 ডিপিএম
এখন this which is DPM, DLO.
ডিএলও সরি
Okay, cool, ready?
Okay.
Starting in 3, 2. But the points that the government fundamentally miss is that all the impacts they've set, number one, they've characterized in such a way that those are the sole basis of religion. We do not think miracles are the sole basis of religion, are the only part. But even if we were to accept all their effects, we can still prove to you that those would have existed regardless because other things exist. And these principles are not coherent fundamentally, right? Before moving on to my constructives, I'll be dealing with the case in two layers. Firstly, I'll be showing to you their responses to our constructives, and secondly, our responses and extensions to their constructives as well. So to our loads and loads of constructive of Warish about how it communalizes people, creates a moment of awe, and this positive perception is something that we are ready to buy. They had absolutely no rebuttal to that. Sakib could not deal with that in a positive manner. It still stands in the house. But on the second part of our historical analysis, we specifically told you about different kind of context, and to an extent Warish showed to you how the method of preaching in different contexts resulted to different consequences. For example, a more spiritual approach to preaching by different kind of miracles led to a more tolerant society in Asian region, or a very very politicized violent approach led to a very very strict political system and religion system in areas like Iraq or Iran. Their only rebuttal to that was, look, it's about blind faith and makes them tolerant. Two responses to that. Firstly, we concede in both scenarios that there will be some crackheads who has blind faith, and regardless of anything that we can do, they'll still go out and charge and bash these kind of individuals because these people cannot be changed. Secondly, they do not tackle the crux of our argument. The crux of our argument is that general approach to preaching religion created a general approach where people were more likely to be tolerant to it, right? So there are just one or two instances where people had like blind faith and it made them intolerant does not really stand. They need to show to us how a generalized approach does not count here, or they need to disprove our arguments of likeliness on how this thing is going to be more likely in different regions. That's where only the response to our constructs, and we think to an extent our case still stands. Moving on to our rebuttals to their construct as well, and I have a lot to say. Firstly, they talked about how religion is only about miracles. So they've characterized the case in such a way that look, religion is only based on miracles, and because you have information asymmetry, because to an extent, religion only depends on these kind of quality, it's bad. Firstly, two responses to that as well. Firstly, it's not only the aspect. So miracle and beliefs in miracle is only a part of religion to begin with. Other than that, we do not think it's a main propagating factor as well. Main things are like are like telling yourself that you have a Jannat and Jahannam to go, or you have a heaven and hell to go, and you have to be accountable to begin with, or teaching values that you need to refrain from certain things and adopt to a certain lifestyle because those are important. We do not think this factor of miracle is the only basis of their religion, and we don't think so. What we think is this debate is as it is happening today is about miracles being a method of indoctrination and whether it's correct or not, right? But moreover, they try to establish to an extent is what is look, people people forget logic in these kind of cases and become irrational, right? They understand the difference. Even when you're not preaching in a world, when you're not preaching you're not preaching miracles, people will still forget logic. Two reasons. Firstly, because religion itself was never built on logic. It was built on faith, as aptly pointed out about it, right? Nothing in religion concedes to an concedes of hardcore logic that you will have this, right? The logic that if you do this kind of things, you'll be granted some heaven or hell in some other parallel universe. It itself is not a concrete fact to begin with. Guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sure.
We can hear you. We can hear
Loud
you.
and clear. Please continue.
Sure. To an extent, right? So understand this. In their paradigm, what they argue is that the sole fact of miracles existent makes people rational. Whether on the comparative we argue, and whether or not miracles existed or not, the fundamental basis of religion itself, to an extent, is not built upon logic. But moreover, these eternal promises of Jannat and Jahannam, these eternal promises that look, you to an extent,
On that very point.
I'll take it later. That the fundamental fact, you to an extent have to make sure that your woman does not go out of the house simply because your religion says so. Religion leaders imply so. Also make sure that also points to the fact that you have fundamental lack of logic. The fact that you are forbidden to have some kind of food or alcohol or pork just because your religion says so is also not contingent of the fact that it's logical decision. But we're simply saying in religion nothing is a logical decision. It should be about interpretation of individuals. It is never built on logic to begin with. So under their context, the exclusive harm that they've showed is not actually the harms of miracles to begin with, but it's the harms of religion itself, and to an extent they've mischaracterized what the real debate is. Before moving on, yes. UI.
Sure, yeah. So why do you this whole concept of heaven and hell, it incentivizes people to be more truthful, to live better lives. So why do we need miracles to do this through parable?
I'm coming to that in my constructors. You'll have your answer. Moving on to another rebuttal. They talked about how religion, to an extent, in this case, people cannot, to an extent, people are frauded into it. So even understand this. In a modern context, there is, in their context of modern world, there is to an extent already a trend where people opt out of the religion. In the Western world, there is a significant trend where people are trying to reconsider their beliefs, right? Because now people are more conscious about the identity, because now people have more control over their lives to begin with. So we think even in their world, even if to an extent these followers are somehow misguided into this abstract idea of miracles, they can still opt out of it. They still do opt out of it. Right? That's not a problem. And lastly, they talk about how bad interpretations to an extent to an extent how there is bad interpretation that's bad, and secondly, because of these bad interpretations of miracles, conflicts exist. Firstly, religion should be only about interpretation, and we do not think that's bad. If you think that giving someone money for having like spiritual, for having the content of like content on yourself that I'm doing something good for Allah, we think it's still legit. Secondly, religious friction does not only occur on miracles. The most of the frictions happen because of geographical reasons. For example, geographical territories and the violence. Sunni Shia conflicts, whatever it says Hinduism, it's based on different interpretations to begin with. We don't think it's the sole reason for this kind of conflict. But moving on to more important matter. Firstly, what we also showed you to an extent is that in this kind of cases, these kind of for making sure that these kind of conflicts are better dealt with, these commonalized factors of miracles are more important, because miracles to an extent are universal in some cases. So for people in Christian community and for the people in Muslim community, the fact that Isa or any other name in other religion did try to sacrifice his son is a common factor. So to an extent, between different religions, it binds people together. This is exactly what I deal with POI. Secondly, within religions itself, within the Shias and the Sunnis, it makes sure to an extent that this miracle factor becomes a commonizing factor. For Shias and Sunnis, the fact that Muhammad did kind of good works, or the fact that Isa or any other individual had miraculous efforts, still to an extent commonalize them, because they believe in the same principles. They believe that they should also uphold those very principles that he at least tried to show, right? So we think in both cases of different religions and in fragments inside religion as well, when there is friction, our side gives you a more realistic case, because we tell you it is essentially this kind of propagation or indoctrination of these kind of miracles actually makes situations better, because they can commonalize better. So for these reasons, for the fundamental lack of engagements into our context and arguments, we think we take this debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed, for Sadid's speech. Moving on to the last speaker from the government side, the government whip, Abra.
Give me a sec to set up the timer.
Yeah, sure. Whenever you're ready, start.
Oh yeah, thanks. May I proceed?
Yeah, sure.
Speaking about the matter of Prophet Ibrahim, when he tried to sacrifice his son, he did it on the principle that God is just. So if God asked me to sacrifice my son, then I will do it. Because that, to him, the trade-off was worth it, because he was completely blinded by his faith, and even his son agreed that it would be okay. So right now, when modern-day Muslims look in retrospect, they miss the point. It's about sacrifice, giving up something that you hold dear to you just to please God. Now, what happens these days? When people go to the Qurbani hut, they buy cows based on how much they cost, thinking that if my cow is relatively bigger than the other cow, then that would be good. It becomes a test of showmanship. So the whole factor of the parable, all those moral values inherent in that story have been lost over time. Moreover, when you say that through storytelling we can avert wars, and all those wars that happened in the Middle East did not happen in Asia, this is where I beg to differ. There is a big reason and justification for that. You forget and neglect to mention that many of the Muslims that converted to Islam, they were formerly lower caste Hindus, and they saw a better life in Islam, not because of the miracles, but because there was less discrimination of them based on caste alone. Also, I would like to add that when you make a logical leap of faith, it is okay to do it in small leaps. When you believe that there is a God, and that God is omnibenevolent, omnipotent, and also omniscient, that is one thing. And when you believe that Jesus Christ can bring the people back from the dead, what you're doing is you're giving people, terminally ill patients, false hope. And why is this detrimental to those patients? As my first speaker came up and said, if you are a person who is terminally ill, what will happen is you will not always make the most rational choices available to you. You will depend on God to cure you. So imagine that you are a you are unable to move your 4 limbs. Instead of going for operation or seeking out treatment, you're going to spend money on tithes based on a seed faith that, look, Warish has come up and said that this is okay because you're giving money, you're transacting it just to get a personal spiritual experience that you cannot otherwise get. But understand this, that person is sincerely believing in God, but what is happening is another person is coming in between like a middleman and transacting money. He's bringing money into the transaction where his faith does not ask you to do this. Also understand this, that when you emphasize on miracles to spread religion, you're missing the point that religion does not need this to solely exist, and there are other ways. For example, there's Pascal Wager, the anthropic argument, the design argument, and the cosmological argument. So when you think that the miracles itself is the only reason that we can propagate religion, you're wrong. Also, many people point out that religious doctrine itself and use it as the sole justification of the religion to exist. For example, Saint Beth of Anselm has said that God exists because God is perfect, and that which exists must be perfect, because something that does not exist cannot be perfect. Although this is circular logic, even great mathematicians like René Descartes have believed in that, and you can look that up as a fact. Moreover, what I have to say is that when religious leaders, they have theophanies, like when Prophet Muhammad went to the Hira cave and encountered an angel, when the Buddha had this sudden revelation about why we have suffering, what happens is that we forget the real point. For example, if we focus on the Buddha as a person who transcended mankind through apotheosis, we forget his teachings. We focus more on the divinity and rather less on the teachings.
POI, sir.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
All right. So in light of the fact that there exists no one true way of Islam or Christianity, no one correct interpretation, what gives you the right to tell these people that their interpretation, their subjective experience through these miracles is illegitimate?
Okay, something you have to understand about this debate, sir, is that when Prophet Muhammad told people not to depict him or show his pictures, he did it for a reason. He did not want to be depicted in such a way that was against his teachings. But what happens is a lot of religious pastors, they portray the Prophet in such a way as if his life was miraculous, whereas he wanted to be portrayed as an honest, ordinary businessman who had been able to communicate with God and wanted to pass on his message. When you interpret the religion a certain way, using the miracles as the core factor, you're not looking into the deeper teachings. For example, love your neighbor, do not covet your neighbor's property. You're rather focusing on the spiritual aspects. But understand this, the spiritual aspect is deeply personal. But how does religion adversely affect the whole population? How is this bad on a utilitarian perspective? It is bad because when you give certain individuals false hope, on the long run, when they're nearing their end, they will believe in heaven either way, whether or not they believe in miracles. Because you have to understand this, even before miracles became a popular approach, people would not attend church until or unless the church told them they would go to hell if they did not go there. So once the church started propagating in the New Testament that there is a hell, and if you do not attend church, and if you do not hold to the 10 commandments, if you do not adhere to them, you will go to hell, that acted as an incentive mechanism for people to go to church. But the miracle itself was not enough to motivate them. So you said in your own speech, sir, that what would happen is if people did not go there, if people did not have these common experiences, they would never band together as a community. But let's look at Europe. In Europe, people were very independent in that they did not have a factor endowment. They wouldn't be able to just plant a tree and wait for it to grow. They had to go out there and live in a hunter-gathering lifestyle. So they are less religious than the Asian people who rely more on nature and divine providence. So what happens is, you cannot solely say that the miracles are the only way that people could have banded together, because that is not true. For example, let's look at Zoroaster. Zoroaster claimed through miracles that he was the only true prophet, whereas Prophet Muhammad was said to be the last prophet and the true messenger of God. So the Muslims and the Zoroastrians, they had a major conflict about which miracles were true, and as a result, you can now see that most Zoroastrians are afraid to come out and admit their real religion, because there is a lot of stigma in this, especially when they are minorities. So in the clash that this would adversely affect society, then we win, because we have proved to you through my first and second speaker's speech that when we give up this logic, when the leap of faith gets larger and larger and larger, it is easier for religious zealots to justify their case that no, that their God is the one true God, that their religious views are exclusive. Could you tell me the time? Sorry, stop working.
I didn't do it. I didn't time anything.
Sorry.
Acha, finish your speech.
Sorry.
My God, this debate.
Yeah, 2 more minutes. So the social friction that occurs is a major result of what happens when people look to these miracles rather than the values itself. So, for example, many schools of thought preach that pluralism is possible, that yes, it is possible for religions to peacefully coexist next to each other without trying to coerce them to convert. Well, what happens is when you're focusing on miracles, it comes into the question of which miracle is right. There's a canceling effect. In fact, David Hume brought this up in his own philosophy about the lesser miracle. What happens is when people propagate the miracle to be the one true miracle and all other miracles to be less than themselves, there's always this embittered experience where you feel that you're being alienated to the society that you belong to. For example, the Hindus, they have more than 36 million gods in their pantheon. Or for example, there's the Shintoism, where each person may have his own personal God, and as long as you believe in that God will exist. So when you believe in your own personal miracle and you're allowing that to cloud your judgment, you're forgetting the principles and you're rather focusing on the miracle, which is detrimental to society as a whole. Moreover, I would like to add that what happens when you do this is that the reward mechanism itself is not good for positive change, and you're crowding out the people that do not opt into this miracle. For example, there are certain sets of miracles that you must believe if you want to call yourself a true Muslim. But this, as Warish has said repeatedly, this definition of true Muslim is very nebulous, to say the least. So when you allow this definition to get even more nebulous, because there are a lot of different interpretations of those miracles out there. For example, the Shia believe in Hazrat Ali to be the true caliphate and being the second messenger after Prophet Muhammad, whereas the Sunnis do not believe this to be true. So when the doctrines clash and people focus rather on those things, rather on the things that do unite them, for example, monotheism, then this is very detrimental to society, and this is why we are proud to propose.
Okay, for his speech.